this is a bit of a different configuration than I've ever used. So hopefully it'll work. Can you move so I can see how you're doing things here? You go that way. But actually, follow me. So tell them about the new cell phone. Hey, okay, good. Tell them about how your shop a little bit, maybe, or something.
Cory wanted me to mention that I have a shop where I sell gongs and singing bowls and things like that. I'm not a very pushy salesman, so, but yes, if you would like to purchase this or another gong, it's possible. This is a gong from a temple in India, what I've been told. Anyway, there you go.
All right, enjoy.
Similar things in my shop years ago.
Oh,
yes.
What shop was that? Like in your home, or?
It was called Cosmic Jewels.
Okay.
Cosmic Trolls.
Never heard of them. Cool. Okay, so I think this setup will work better. The only thing is getting us both in. Last time we tried to use Zoom, it was wonky. Ben was saying that he tried the bring in camera option in live stream and the sound was affected with it. The only other option would be is maybe creating a Zoom. I usually do this in the other room, but I think, this would work, although I wanted to be able to see both of us too. I guess what I could do is toggle a little bit too. So, yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll try that. Just wanted to try and use this tripod-like thingy if I could. So, script is over here. And, so good morning, everybody, or late morning. We've got Joseph Fedorow here. Am I saying that right? It's like one of those easy names that you could say three ways. That's pretty close.
It's one of those names.
Yeah. And, today we're going to be talking with him about his somatic healing work, and basically, let's see here. So many of us have likely heard of the Sundance Festival. You talked about Sundance. I'm not sure if that was what you were referring to or not.
No, so it would have been a traditional Sundance with the Ojibwe many years ago.
Okay.
And I was on a trip with a friend to Sedona, and I had an experience there. We went into an alternate dimension to visit a shaman in another dimension. And I asked him a question regarding my wife at the time, who was very ill, and how I could help her. And he said to me to go get a piece of the sun. And
cool.
as we're driving back, my friend that was with me was the head scabe of one of the Sundance. And he was saying that he had so much to do, and I looked at him, I said, well, get a piece of the sun. And then I found myself in the Sundance six weeks later after returning from Arizona. So that's kind of like how it all started, the synchronicity of getting into shamanism and various other aspects. And even in shamanism, there's that sexual component too. So with ourselves,
Yeah, I put an age range in the title. I put 18 to 20 or 16 to 18 and up. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I won't get too
That's okay. Otherwise, wouldn't mind.
In general, the highest energy we have is the sexual expression, the sexual orgasm, basically. And so, as we look at sex, is beautiful, healthy, and is an expression of ourselves to God or to spirit. And so, when you're in that aspect of sensuality, you can use that energy to manifest things in your life, or to improve things in your life, or to actually remove things within yourself, or bring to a depth of things in yourself that are no longer useful for you. Mm-hmm. So, I've had addictions, for example, and I've used that sensuality and that sexual energy to help overcome those cravings for that drug, for example.
Okay, cool. Yeah, lots of interesting experiences, I'm sure. Before we continue, because I'm sure it's going to distract me and possibly other viewers, you've got an interesting, it looks like intarsia. I've done that kind of woodworking. There's some kind of wood art behind you there?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's an eagle.
Oh, very elaborate. Very cool. So, would you like to talk about the medicine? I typed it as Medicine Society for some reason, but the medicine type of work that you do, that kind of healing and treatment is interesting and often quite natural in its form. Sometimes it's the best option, not to discount meds that do work for someone, or if there's a struggle. But can you tell us how that's worked for you and the benefits you see, that kind of stuff?
Well, the one thing I noticed many years ago, my former wife was in rehab for 2.5 months because of a brain aneurysm that she had.
Mm.
And she was receiving all the necessary care that she needed, but she wasn't progressing. And then one day I came across a Reiki master, and I asked her to come and give Sharon some energy. And at that moment, it was like 2 days later, everything changed. She was making good progress. So just as you say, sometimes meds are necessary. They're part of the mix. But part of that mix also might be spirituality, spiritual healing, seeing a psychotherapist, whatever the case may be. So
And whatever's most available and whatever works best for the person, yeah.
Yeah, so there might be maybe one component that was missing. So with Sharon, the component that was missing was spiritual healing. And so once that was included in with the other mix of things, then she started to progress and get much quicker. And so that taught me a very important lesson, that it's not just saying, oh, well, I had this treatment with this one fellow, and because of that, I'm healed. Usually it's a combination of things. It's just that was one of the missing components that was needed with that healing.
Right.
So for myself, just because it's kind of synchronicity has brought me that way, I specialize in helping people with trauma. And a lot of these people have gone through talk therapy and so forth, but the energy of that trauma is still within the body, and they're carrying it and holding it. So one way to look at it is that something happens to you, and so you want to bury that feeling because you don't want to feel it anymore. Mm-hmm. And you wrap other emotional aspects around it to protect yourself. But what this does is that it builds up power, and power is defined as a less intense charge drawn to a greater intense charge. So what happens is that because of this trauma you've had and you haven't dealt with it, and it's gaining power within your physicality, it's drawing more of those things that you don't want in your life. And so the method I'm using is basically there's no talk therapy. You don't have to tell me about the trauma at all, unless you have a need. But 99% of the people don't want to talk about it. They just want to get rid of it.
They probably talked about it lots already, yeah.
I help them, show them how to push this trauma or energy signatures out of their body. And then after we do that, then it's basically connecting to their desires and hopes in life. What is it that they truly desire? And so we infuse that into all the places in which the trauma existed in the body to, again, now create more power to draw in all those desires and wants that you have in your life. Mm-hmm. So it's not just getting rid of the bad, but it's also bringing in the good, to give you a good start. And so that's my main type of healing that I do, shamanic-wise.
Right.
And
now, some of what I based this on was based on what we were talking about in chat the other day or whatever. So I don't want to jump too much ahead of things, but it does sound. Did you say that you've done this since the early 2000s or longer? This kind of stuff.
I became a Reiki master, I guess it was in 2004, 2005. And then when I went on that trip to Sedona with my Reiki master's husband, then I was thrown into the shamanic aspect, basically.
Okay, cool.
And I didn't ignore it. So I pursued it just because certain things were happening in my life that I couldn't ignore.
Right. Yes.
So I started 2004, and then the shamanic aspect started around 2006.
Okay, cool. So pretty close to around the same time, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd like to also incorporate my musicality into this a little bit, and the only song that kind of came to mind, kind of based on like the indigenous healing and stuff like that, is one called "Colors of the Wind." So I'm gonna go get my guitar, and I'm gonna play it. If you have an instrument you'd like to improvise along, you're welcome to. And we'll do a bit
Yeah,
of
I know I don't. But
What's that?
I used to play, but now I'm a listener.
Okay, well that's fine too. Those are important.
Yeah. Been so long yet.
So a little bit of a musical interlude, and then we'll get back to questions. Okay. I haven't used this site in a while, but okay. Yeah, I'll rotate the camera for a moment. Rotate. Okay, here we go. I don't know if I've done it in this key before, but you want to flip over? You think you own whatever land you land on. The earth is just a dead thing you can play. But I know every rock and tree and creature has a life, has a spirit, has a name. You think the only people who are people are people like you. But if you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you'll learn things you never knew, you never knew. Have you ever heard the wolf cry? Call the moon, or ask the grinning bobcat why he grins? Can you sing with all the voices of the mountain? Can you paint with all the colors of the leaves? Can you paint with all the colors of the run the hidden pine trails of the forest? Hi Lex, come taste the sun-sweet berries of the earth. Come rolling all the riches all around you. Just listen to one of your songs last night. And for once, never wonder what they were. The rainstorm and the river are my brothers. The otter and the hare, they are my friends. And we are all connected to each other in a circle, in a hope that never ends. How high does the sycamore grow? You let it down, you'll never know. And you'll never hear the wolf cry to the blue-corn moon. For whether we arrive to the copper's hill, you can sing with all the voices of the mountain. You can paint with all the colors of the wind. You can own the earth and still all you own is earth until you can paint with all the colors of the wind. Hopefully that came through okay. Thank you. Yeah, we got the flute in there, the panflute with that. So, yeah. So we got Lex, who actually hosts, I don't know if you might know Lex Jefferson. She hosts an open mic. I don't know if it's happening very much these days, but at Gordy's Coffee House in Elmwood has tuned in.
Oh,
So it sounds like from what you told me in our conversations that you did deal with addictions briefly, and that journey sounded inspiring. Plus, not just in general, but to those who may be having addictions in their lives, especially hard substances, etc. Can you tell us, man, what that was like for you?
well, I was a crack cocaine addict for roughly about 3 years. And
Oh, 3 years. I misread that.
once I started it, I had a desire to start to quit right away, but it took me about 3 years. And about a couple of years before that, I was at a workshop in Mount Shasta. And I was talking to this one woman who was a heroin addict for 30 years. And she saw this shaman. And with within one day, she broke free from the habit. She never went back to opiate addiction.
Maybe that's
And I thought, well, this is really amazing. So when I fell into my addiction, I contacted that shaman, and I spent 3 days with him.
3 days, that's what I remembered, yeah.
And I walked away drug-free. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, but I have to admit, within 8 months after that, I did relapse, but not to the point of where I was before. So it kind of got to the point because every time I would smoke crack, I would throw my pipe away and say I quit, right? Then I had to go out and buy another one. And one day I was sitting at home and I thought, I'd like to do some crack. But I said, I don't really feel like going out and buying a pipe. At that moment in time, I knew that my addiction was waning and I could completely overcome it. But what I also had to do is I had to change my environment. So I'm not blaming my environment, but it wasn't conducive to help me to quit. And so once I left that environment in which I was living, I found myself actually living on Yonge Street in between Ellis and Sargent, which is a bad area for drugs and that type of thing. And I remember having like $1,500 cash in my pocket for my upcoming tuition for Red Lodge with the Deer Tribe community.
Uh-huh.
And I had no desire to go out and buy any. And so I haven't touched it since then.
You knew what you wanted to do with it and what you wanted to be doing in life, yeah.
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 Yeah, and so the 3 days aspect was pretty important. What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a major milestone in my. I'm not proud of it. I did a lot of things that I'm not proud of during that time, but you have to go into that aspect of self-forgiveness and having compassion towards yourself, just as I would towards an addict that was seeking my help. What I mean? So, because I could be very rough on myself and be very judgmental, so I had to really overcome that a lot.
It's pretty common.
Give myself a break.
Pretty common for folks, yeah.
There's been billions of people that become drug addicts, and there's been billions that have also gotten clean. So
That's right.
I'm not special either, and that's the other thing to look at.
But you had to take steps and do things to get there, yeah. So, but out of curiosity, one of those organic questions, because I don't know if you did kind of say or not just now, but what are some of those things that you learned in those 3 days that you either used then or still use to kind of keep you,
One type of healing he did, which I do from time to time for others, is healing the archetype. And so, as we go throughout our daily life, it's like a wheel that's spinning, and we're connecting to very different archetypes of our personality. And so what happens with a drug addict or with people that have various problems, that archetype that's supporting that drug addiction, for example, is the only thing that's there. There's no other archetypes that's coming in to help reduce that or actually give you balance in your life. And so it's the healing of that archetype of the drug addict, basically. I don't know if I really learned a lot at that time when I was receiving. It was kind of more of a progression, because I found that it took about 2 years just for my head to start thinking in the right logical way, compared as before. And so one thing that's really helped me, which people may find strange, is that sometimes a memory will come back to me from my drug addiction, and I think, what the hell were you doing, Joe? Like, what were you thinking of? And I can't make any sense of it. So I don't really analyze it too much. I just start looking at myself and looking at how funny it really was in that perspective. And through that, I've gained that self-forgiveness for myself. Just by laughing at yourself and not taking those things so seriously anymore. Granted, at the same time that, I accomplished a great thing by overcoming that, because many people don't.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not special.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And
that's really the important aspect of it.
Those are things that a lot of us hear, and it's actually practicing them. Yeah.
And so practicing to be that good person.
Right.
Also, I'm told that I had to do good deeds for my transgressions or my bad deeds while I was a drug addict. And so now that's become such a part of my life where I don't have to think about if there's an old lady that's shuffling her feet on the ice from the grocery store, I automatically go up and I ask her, do you want help? And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. And so it just becomes a part of me. So actually, through the whole process of being a drug addict, I've become a kinder person, a more loving person.
Yeah, it's not always necessary, but
Yeah.
for some people, I guess it's part of the process. Yeah,
Pardon me?
it says for some of us,
Yeah,
I guess it's part of the process. And it's interesting too because that reminded me of, I don't know what it was about that recent status of yours that made me think, oh, I should invite you on this. You just sounded like you had an interesting kind of like way of describing things and insights and stuff. And that was, you were talking about some of the people in your building, I think, and that you were, I don't know if you want to share it, but
some people have said that I have the gift of making the mundane beautiful. So, I could tell the story that you're referring to about
Sure.
Judy, who cooks for me. She's quite elderly, but it gives her a purpose in life at the same time. So it's a
important.
mutual benefit,
Mm-hmm.
But I could talk about that in a very drawn-out way, and it wouldn't really inspire anybody. And so it's going within and trying to find that kindness and love and that appreciation. Because appreciation is really a foundation of shamanism. We don't really pray, even though we may say that word. We're constantly giving appreciation, even for the littlest thing. Like I jumped in the shower this morning and I thought, man, I love having hot water. Because I've had showers in places in countries where there was no hot water.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's just that brief appreciation, And so what that does is just like, law of attraction. It starts bringing things to you that you really, because of your appreciation, not because you're just asking and asking and asking all the time.
Yeah. I wonder if the pandemic has actually kind of in some ways helped with that kind of thing, things that we had to kind of go without for a while or change how we did things and then kind of we get back to them. It's like, oh yeah, I really did appreciate this. And then also the new things that you gained within it too. Like I'm thinking, I spend a lot of time at home, so it's been a few days, speaking of showers, since I've had one. And I'm thinking New Year's Eve we're going out, so that day I'm going to shower for the new year, and it'll probably be lovely. Yeah. And it's different things that we can do to kind of help ourselves kind of heal and be well and that.
Also finding that juicy, because for myself, one of my causes of drug addiction is that basically I find life boring and uneventful. It didn't really matter what happened in my life. It was boring. And so now, another shaman gave me what we call a warrior task assignment to keep a journal and write down little things in my life that I found juicy. And so one of the things I find really juicy in my life is writing. And it gives me so much satisfaction just to write those feelings out that's in my heart and in my mind. And then sometimes I'm blown away at how it affects other people. I honestly sometimes think people really like that. And so that gives me encouragement to write more,
Yeah.
And so at that point, you reach a freedom or autonomy saying, yes, this is what I want. It's like you with your music, This is what gives me sustenance and life. This is the juiciness of life. So pursue that. Don't give it up,
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you say that because I almost have. When you're not reaching goals, then you start to get depressed, then you don't want to do it and that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm noticing that this year there's some performance opportunities coming and hopefully it'll be good. I know I was thinking of entering Fringe, but that's not easy. You have to pay like $800 and enter a draw and this and that. But yeah, I'm working on a stage show. Started doing, having interest in doing puppetry because of a friend. The music, like you say, we're going to be playing at some seniors' homes soon. These podcasts, different healing things for people. So before we kind of go on to the next topic, what's that?
I said you can see as you talk about it more, you're getting even more excited, more enthusiastic. So that's a sign that that's your juiciness.
Well, and that's what I enjoy. I've told someone recently, and I've probably thought it often too. Like, whenever I think, is this the right things that I should focus on, or is there something different I should be looking at? I always think, well, maybe, but they don't speak as strongly as these things. I don't think they would do as much good for me as these things. So,
My mentor, something that was very important recently. She said that the problem in society, we're taught to work hard to get money. And she says money should never be the goal. So if you're working hard,
it helps you get through life, like Lex said. Yeah.
that money will follow you. Well, it may not be there instantly, but it will come, and I with some experience, you know. So you may get a great gig, you may do really well, and you say to Spirit, "Oh, thank you, that was just so fantastic. I want more of that, and you know, show me how to do it even better next time." Right? So you can see that excitement in there. It's not just a foregone conclusion. Oh, I did good, and that's good. No, I want to know how to make it even better, so I can have more of that in my life. Right?
Yeah. Well, it's even like with this thing, you know, I've done probably 10 now, kind of interspersed, a few right in a row, and then there was dry spells and that. But I've never used this setup, and I actually think it works quite well. So it's kind of, I've made it even better, perhaps, and you know, and I don't know why I hadn't done it sooner, kind of thing. Now, I had this initially under the next question, but I think it kind of fits in better with, even if we kind of went from that topic a little bit. I had sent you some lyrics that I came up with the other day. I know it was just, well, I don't know if I did last night, but I know it was just this morning I suggested if you wanted to add something, so you may not have. And I don't have the chords written in. I just kind of came up with it kind of on the spot. There's that weird thing that Gmail put at the bottom corner, kind of covering some of it. So I don't know how I do with putting chords to it, and I don't know how the guitar came through. So I'll just, I guess, quickly read it. This is a song or poem, whatever you want to call it, that I had intended to write for quite a while now. It was kind of one of those, okay, that sounds like an idea. I've got kind of a title, but it never went beyond that until last night. So basically, some are better than others. We mostly don't mean people, but their druthers, sisters and brothers of the universe. When we turn to gambling or drugs, when what we really needed just love and hugs. When we turn to drinking, perhaps the worst one of all, or jump into things too headstrong, when maybe we should just make a call. Talk to someone instead of these less healthy crutches, things we love so much, crutches. Overly unhealthy eating, crutches. Being self-defeating with crutches. Like crutches, self-depleting. Crutches can be a metaphor for things we do and adore to the extreme. And then that's where that thing came from Gmail came in front of it, and I don't remember, but that's, you know, it's a work in progress. Yeah, thank you. And
that's another thing too, is that sometimes you go through a dry phase. We might go through chaos in life.
yeah,
But while we're going through that change, that's when the opportunities are there. So if we get too stressed or too much in our own self-pity, we don't notice it. But if we're like out of stress and not in self-pity, then we can notice those opportunities that can make our life even better.
yeah.
So that's basically what you're doing. You know?
One, the other, or both. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's interesting when you say that. You know, the first thing that came to mind is actually a specific person that kind of almost came to mind earlier, or came up earlier. But in general, a lot of people, you know, I mean, and sometimes for good reason, you know, they have things they got to do in their life and that. But, and certainly sometimes slowing down can be very slow, can be very kind of dry and monotonous and that. But then coming out of it almost feels that much more better because of it. But a lot of people, you know, like, you know, they have so much at their access and at their resources. Like, I don't want to, like, point fingers or whatever, but, like, we did, I guess it was just before Christmas, the week just before Christmas, or week of or something even, because we were with a friend that I don't think celebrates that holiday. And she does puppetry. And our video that we posted had gotten a reaction. And I think she's doing stuff with it, but she's a student. She doesn't work, I don't believe, but she's a student. And she's studying that kind of stuff. I just think that she's not necessarily doing as much with it as she could for whatever other reasons in her life. When it came into my life, it's like, oh, I just need the stuff. I feel like, and hopefully is the case, I could go off and running with it now, you know? It's just you have to meet the right people who, you know, and everybody can do different things with the same thing, you know?
Yeah, true, yeah.
Yeah.
And that means you have to get out there in the world and mingle and communicate with people so those things can happen.
Yeah, we're going to a place on New Year's Eve, so meeting lots of new people there. So yeah, it's daunting.
Yeah.
It's daunting, but it's exciting too, and you know, the possibilities.
Yeah. Some people work think, geez, but they're so rewarding in the end,
Yeah.
and you know that, so you'll go through that hard phase to get there.
Yeah, and you know, it's not always going to work out, but I think we're both testaments to the fact that if we keep working at it and we keep trying, things will. And you know, sometimes when we're in a certain spot, we can hear people say that and think, they're just saying it. They don't really know how hard it is for me. But I'm starting to notice that, you know, as I'm hopefully getting out of that stuck spot and being one of those people, it's like, oh, maybe they did know. You know, maybe they just didn't say it in such depth that made me feel like they really did, but maybe they did. So.
Well, one thing to embrace, which is also a teaching, is impeccability rather than perfection. Perfection
doesn't exist.
Yeah. Impeccability states that because you're human, you're gonna make mistakes, and so when you do make mistakes, you say, okay, I'm not going to do that again. How can I make it better?
Or try not to, yeah.
Or you're going to go to plan B. But on the other hand, as I said before, if you do something really good, then the question comes about, well, how can I do it better next time? So,
I like that. I know you've said it a few times, and I like it. I think sometimes, though, we have to just be like, okay, I'm proud of myself. I'm not going to talk it down. I'm just going to say, you know, that was good. I don't need to find reasons why it wasn't. But there's always importance of growth, too. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if we should talk about this, but maybe a little bit. Being free in your body and your mind, and open in a general sense. Your thoughts on that?
Well, one thing I always tell people if they're interested in starting a spiritual path is basically learn how to bring your mind to silence. So, you know, the traditional ways to do meditation for that, but it never really worked for me. And so what I've always tried to do, because I do a mundane job during the day, I'm a cleaner, right? And so you're just kind of going through the same motions or the same every day. And so I'm thinking,
but you're working with yourself only, right? You have lots of time in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to practice really to keep my mind silent. And you know, to be honest with you, sometimes it only happens for 5 seconds. But I've had days where half a day nothing was going through my head, like I didn't have that inner talk going in my head or anything. And it's at those moments that you feel that expansion and connection to spirit, because other thoughts will come into your mind. We call them the commander voices, and rather than the self-pity voices. And so these are the communication with spirit or through other spirits and creating that expansion, basically. So if you're sitting out in nature, for example, like on a cold winter day, and there's not a sound in the forest, and just sit there and listen, that in itself clears your mind, and now you're more able to communicate with the trees, the animals that may be there.
Because there is things to pick up on, that we miss,
Yeah. But it's not, you know, the concept is very easy, but it's not the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, I've found that guided meditation or group meditation works. If I was just to sit with one of those singing bowls that Glenn has, I'm sorry to say it probably wouldn't for me. I'd be like, okay, I'm playing a bowl for a few minutes, next. You know, maybe it's my ADHD, whatever it is. But if it whatever, you have to find what works for you. That's the main thing. And it should be more than one thing.
Yeah. So you try a lot of things until you find that magic, or you might combine one thing of one aspect and something from somewhere else and combine it and think, hey, this works for me right now.
I guess they call it. I guess they call it mindfulness too. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure that maybe it just never consciously came to my mind, or I've never spoken it out. But even when you're in like a busy environment, you could even be doing that, because you're like, okay, I'm not necessarily. I'm going to try not to be overwhelmed. I'm just going to pay attention. What am I seeing? What am I hearing? You know, and what do I feel I should do about it? Yeah. Because for some reason I was thinking how it's harder in the winter, perhaps, but in the summer, and then my mind went to festivals. You know.
Yeah, but you can go into that dreaming phase too, where you're just gazing at nothing, and then all of a sudden, certain thoughts will float in your mind, and you'll get ideas. it's like Einstein even said, he found a lot of his discoveries while he was dreaming, while he was sleeping. And so that's another avenue.
Lucid dreaming, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, lucid dreaming and practicing that. And so I practice that as well. Actually doing your own healing in lucid dreaming can be 100 times more effective than doing it while you're awake, because you don't have the physical limitations while you're dreaming. And amazing how it can work. So I wouldn't say I'm very good at it yet, but I'm getting better. And I have had experiences where I actually had self-healing and waking up in the morning and feeling fantastic. And sometimes I don't remember the dream.
Yeah, I know I said that message that maybe didn't want to get hugely into, because sleep is also an important aspect of it. But yeah, lately it's like a couple of days ago I actually had 2 small dreams, and I remembered them when I woke up, or for the most part. But I've been noticing a lot more lately that it's like, I think I had one. I don't remember anything about it, unfortunately, because I like to kind of analyze them, And sometimes I don't feel like I've had them at all. But, so it's weird because, you can feel like you're having the same sleep otherwise. But sometimes you're dreaming, sometimes you won't. Yeah. Now, taking dreams in another format, dreams and goals and getting there and that. And I know I reread this when I wrote it, so hopefully it makes sense. I guess maybe just feel a little bit. Okay, so some will take degrees, some will get a degree, some will just happen into opportunities. Do you have any struggles in your study? Did you have any struggles in your study that you would have, you feel would have been better learned by just happening into them, or being more hands-on rather than textbook? I know it was at least somewhat that, or was it mostly hands-on when you most of your training?
So there's a certain magical aspect that happens. It's hard to explain, but in the beginning, it will be kind of like a textbook thing. You have to learn the principles. So, like, for example, in shamanism, knowledge is built on knowledge. So you basically have to start from the beginning to obtain those higher states of knowledge. But there comes a point in time where that knowledge from that textbook, so to speak, or from classes, becomes part of your heart essence. And so then it becomes a knowing of those teachings, rather than saying, I have to do step A, for example.
Once it feels natural and a part of you.
Embodiment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's hard to describe that. It's hard to help a person go into that, but eventually everybody does on some level. So now it becomes, even your actions, your thoughts, and everything are changed because of that, because it's embodied now. So sometimes I'll find myself doing certain things and think, that's part of the teachings. And wow, right there it tells you it's been embodied.
Putting it to use, yeah. Because, we all have things to offer and come to them in our own unique ways. I also believe our own ways, and one is no lesser than the other. This might kind of tie into both your training and experiences in general. How have you, and then I want to make sure I go back to number 6 because I'm skipping it for a moment. How have you helped those around you? What have been your favorite kind of memory, one or two of your favorite memories of a time when you feel you really helped someone?
Oh, that's pretty hard.
No pressure.
This, for example, when I do healings on people, I never contact them afterwards to see how they're doing.
Oh.
And the reason for that is because it gives the energy of doubt that the healing actually worked.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, do something good for somebody, but I have no idea whether it amounted to something really good or if it was just a bug.
I guess you could call it testimonial, is what I was kind of thinking. A testimonial or a review or something?
Yeah, that for example was with a sorcerer that I would love to be a student of. My financial, I have financial limitations. I can't right now, but
understandable. Good to know.
Basically, I read a book basically called "The Power of Silence" by Lujan Matus, and then he had 2 group sessions to talk about that. And so it's all about knowing and not doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so as humans get into distraction and we're doing things just for the sake of doing it, not for any purpose at all.
Mm.
And when I read this book, it's actually it's a short book, and the way he did it was that he had a story where an old sage was asked to teach the children of his village to spread his knowledge because he was getting elderly. And through this story, he gives all these various teachings. And so as I'm reading this book, for the first time in my life, because we all talk about opening our heart, and men have a really hard time opening hearts, right?
Oh, yeah.
I just saw my whole heart just fully exploded wide open. And I felt this loving presence. And life got easier. I didn't worry about things. Spirit would tell me, for example, I'd get a message to do something now because now it's the right timing. And so I would just do it. And so I didn't really have to even give a lot of thought in how I lived my life because it felt like I was being guided.
Mm-hmm.
And so this had a huge impact on my life, just from reading that book. And then when we got into the group discussions with him, even more so. So I wrote a testimonial to Lujan, and so I was asked if they could use it. And I said, yeah, you can use it in any way that you want. And I forgot about it. Often he'll list testimonials on his website called Parallel Perception.
Mm-hmm.
One day I had a nap. I woke up and I saw a notification on YouTube. And I thought, oh, it's from Parallel Perception. I'll look at it. And as the words are being narrated, I realized that they were my words. They actually made a YouTube video of.
Not just in writing, but actually spoken out.
Yeah, so who knows how many people, it obviously affected him in some way.
Yeah.
And how it may affect other people. When I used to teach healing, used to teach Reiki and things like that.
I was going to ask if you've done workshops and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, everybody's a healer because, just helping an old lady cross the street is an aspect of healing.
Yeah.
Really, that aspect of kindness, because, you could maybe prevent an accident from happening, It's kind of it's kind of hard to visualize it as healing, but it is. Really.
Healing, helping is healing, yeah, giving, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And so, with the archetype of the Grand Patriarch, basically it has three questions. You see what needs to be done. Are you capable of doing it? If you are capable of doing it, then you go into action and do it.
Yeah.
And so just conducting your life in that way will help you in many respects. Well, can I help that old lady right now? No, I can't because I'm carrying 10 bags of groceries. Okay?
Right.
I can't do it.
Being realistic, but you may surprise yourself if it is possible, yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I could figure out a way to help her. Maybe she'll just put her arm around my arm and I'll guide her to her car or whatever the case may be. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And an aspect of kindness all the time, seeing the opportunity where you can help. And I've had people scream at me, no, I don't want your help, get out of here. So then you don't take it personally, you don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I offered and, yeah.
Look for the next opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course sometimes we feel like we can't be as helpful as we might like to be, but if we can, it's always nice, yeah. I think...
I give it to many people, and some people ask for my help, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't have anything left to give.
Yeah.
So I'm just being totally honest.
But I guess you give what you can, and that's what you're showing. So I appreciate you doing this with me. Yeah. I think the only other thing, because the rest of that's just random notes, may have made more sense to ask when we were talking about the dreaming, but I can't remember where it was. I guess in chat or something, you'd said something about dreamy voice. Your regular voice is okay, but you've had me curious ever since you mentioned it. For a little sample, if you could.
Well, that was from the little story I posted on Facebook about bending over to this woman who's schizophrenic and had various problems, but bending over and telling her that I loved her. And she said the same thing back. It's just at that moment I had a feeling that we're going outside of this dimensional time into a place where time does not exist. So in the spirit world, time doesn't really exist. It's a man-made thing, right? And so as I bent over and looked into her eyes and told her I loved her, it was just that dreamy voice came about. It was kind of like, it wasn't my voice. It was the voice of my spirit that was talking at that moment. So you almost lose your perception of what your persona is, or who you are. You're really going to the truth of who you are. And I'm
But then you find it too, yeah.
And so as I walked away, I had tears in my eyes, and I realized at that moment I'd known this person. I know the spirit of this person because we spent lifetimes together through whatever means. In this lifetime, it's just a matter of seeing her where I work once in a while and giving her kindness or talking to her.
It's something worth thinking about because I'm sure we've all had that experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And then on a sorcery aspect, people have their own dream language. So, we'll talk in a different language, and we're doing that because it's it's the best way to express ourselves, and we call it dreaming language.
Okay.
And we all have our own little language. So, me as a dreamer, I could be talking to you in my dreaming language, but you'll understand me even though it's not yours, and I'll understand your dreaming language even though it's not part of mine. It's kind of interesting that it evolves. And so the magic happens. To truly dream well, you have to be out of self-pity and self-importance, arrogance, because you're just going to create more chaos. So it's like, okay, I'm going to dream tonight, and I'm going to get even with that person that did this and that to me. That's just totally not in the picture. We don't go there.
Oh, yeah.
So
if you're looking for drama, that's no good, yeah.
Basically. And so my whole purpose for the last 10 years is basically getting myself out of self-pity. And it's not about just feeling sorry for yourself, although it is, but if I get angry at somebody because they said something to me, I'm in self-pity. So it goes much further than that, right? Because what you're saying is, well, how dare you talk that way to me? And then you say something back, and then it starts to escalate. And so the elders say that all the problems, all the hate, all the racism, everything in the world is based on self-pity, basically.
Interesting way to look at it. I never thought of that.
Yeah, it's a way of looking at it. And it's I wouldn't say it's 100% of it, but it is a good chunk of it, of that self-pity. So as I find now, as I go about my life, someone may say something to me, and I don't really care. It doesn't trigger me. It doesn't do anything. So I'm thinking to myself, well, shit, that gives me a lot more freedom in life. I feel better. Somebody can call me an asshole, and I don't care. Because I know I'm not an asshole. You know why people don't like you sometimes? Because they don't know you. If you knew me, you would like me.
Yeah.
That's that simple.
Yeah.
But even with, always going to be people that don't like you, and there's going to be people that hate you, just as well as there's going to be people that like you and people that love you.
Sometimes there's a sensitivity. In talking about neighbors and what you were just saying there, it did come to my mind a situation, and it's been a few months now since it's happened, where you said it exactly, we'd had, they're across the street and down a bit, but, we've had a few interactions with each other, but, and especially the two women in the family, I felt like we knew them better. So the father, had said something to me once, and I was less familiar with him. And I don't know if he'd also gotten it from the other two or not, but he said it, and I not necessarily showed it in the moment, but afterwards I was quite frustrated, and because it's so close to home, that stays with me sometimes, and it's kind of like, but like you say, yeah, they don't know you. This is their perspective. It could be wrong, and was, I feel, and that's where it's hard.
Yep.
I feel, because you feel like you want to set it right. It's like, you know, and you want them to know. Whether you get that opportunity, who knows, right?
Yeah. And the opportunity comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't, Because it's not really your issue.
Just got to do your best. You know why you do what you do, and
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because, I remember really what sparked it is I had went to their door a few times, and I wasn't getting an answer. I figured they're not home or they're busy, whatever. I'll try later. And I guess they were home. So they were kind of, in a way, counting each time I was going to the door. And I was going because I was anxious about something, and I felt like they'd be the right person to talk to it about. I since have told the daughter. I don't know if she told them, but It's unfortunate, you want to get along with the neighbors, and not that we like have fights all the time with each other or anything like that, but you want to be comfortable, you want to be understood. But it is what it is, I guess, in time or maybe never, in some cases,
No, there's going to be someone else that's going to understand you. There's going to be someone else that's going to be
That's
there
right.
for you, as well, right? And so it's, well, yeah.
And it turned out that...
Totally, I remember
Go ahead.
saying that, Bob, they were supposed to go out to do something. Well, Bob changed his mind. Okay. That's all he said. Well, okay. He didn't have, and so that's what we talk about, not caring. Not really caring about what the other person thinks about you and this and that. And for me, it's like, I still have memories from 10 years ago that whatever that person did to me controls me. And I don't like that. I want to be free. And so
It happens to the best of them too, right? Even the ones that have done a lot of healing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's something in progress. It's always going to continue. We're always going to find something to work on.
Well, and that's the
Just
thing.
being honest.
Like, this was connected to somebody, actually the pastor of the church near us. And the church ain't going anywhere. Whether the pastor will move on, I don't know. And it's not that I had a huge issue with the pastor. It's just I didn't know what to expect from him. They knew him better than I did. He came at us with an invite. I didn't know if I was comfortable, and that. So they didn't know what they didn't know. I only know what I know. And like I say, I guess in a way I still somewhat have those feelings because I don't know what's going to come up between us and the pastor. Although I think that the other lady that works at the church has probably talked about us a little bit to him. So, but, and he's just, a nice guy from India and I think he just wants to be a good neighbor, and there might be things about us that he wouldn't like, and it's hard not to be authentic and honest around, that's how you want to be, but sometimes, you do have to hold back, and that can be hard, but, it doesn't, I guess I'm even realizing just saying it now that it doesn't have to be anything big. It can be just a kind of, hey, have a good day, hey, good morning kind of relationship for the most part. If something else comes up, I guess, I can deal with it then. I like to be prepared, but, you can't know what's coming sometimes, right?
That's right, yeah. You can get Godsmacked that way,
Yeah.
Someone could think you're being an asshole, but they're being really kind and thoughtful towards you. But because you've got this thought about who they are, you could really destroy something that could be really great.
Well, and like in that aspect, not only is he Catholic, he might be Hindu as well, I don't know, but he's of a culture that probably doesn't agree with certain things.
Yeah.
So can he agree respectfully, or is he going to go all hardcore on us? And then, it's like, and then, like I say, in an institution like a church, who knows how it could get around, right? Like I've told the other lady that's there, things that I'm telling her, I don't really want it getting to too many people, kind of thing. Not because they're bad necessarily, but, I think you know where I'm going with that. But, so I'm sure we all have examples of that in life, right?
Oh, sure, yeah. We all do. Without exception, really.
Now, back to that thing behind you that still catches my eye. Did you make that?
No, actually, it was a friend of mine. She found it at a garage sale.
Amazing what you can find at those, right?
Like that to me, well, you can borrow it. And I said, okay, but I've had it for like 3 or 4 years now. So it's not really mine. I put it back, it's gone.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So,
if I'm not mistaken, it's called Intarsha, that kind of woodworking. It's almost like a puzzle. Or is it just carved?
Yeah, that's what I think. Myself, I think they person had a template and cut the wood and so forth. That's how I think it is, probably.
Mm-hmm. When I lost my dad when I was young, I had a big brother that did some of that stuff, so I did some of that stuff in woodworking. It's been a while.
People's spirit is kind of like the Holy Spirit in a way. It's the main communicator with spirit, basically, with the Creator.
Yeah.
That's one way of looking at it.
Yeah. I don't know.
So,
maybe I don't know if you do. I don't know if you've ever said if you do like art or anything like that. I know you said you play violin, but art, like painting.
I'd love to take actually lessons for painting and stuff.
Yeah, we've got lots of art at our place.
If I can find time. And I used to do. I used to make wands, insert stones in various wands, and, and make staffs and that kind of 2 years ago. That's kind of artistic in a way, but there's a. While I'm doing it, I'm looking at the flow of energy using the stones and trying to manipulate it and so forth. And
pottery is really good with that. That I actually have closer by. I have some pottery I made at the art gallery in a class years ago. Where is it? I think we moved it from where it was. I was going to show it, but I think we've moved it. Oh, well, I'll put a picture later.
But that's like a process, I kind of like that kind of stuff. So it's like playing music, writing, being an artist, and so forth. It's kind of like it's all coming from an idea, right? There's nothing tangible there. It's just an idea, and then by the time you get to the last step, you have a finished piece.
Yeah.
That all came from an idea,
Right.
And I find it very interesting. It's just like a carpenter looking at a piece of wood. Well, I can make something out of that, and he makes it's just an idea.
One thing I'm pretty sure is where it is. I didn't make it, but it's an interesting wood piece that just came to my mind, so I'll go get it. So I'm not really sure the story behind it. In fact, we got it at a craft sale quite a while ago. There's something... There's just a small piece of wood that we have on a window ledge behind spices and this and that. And it really just says his first name and his phone number. It's like a really it's cheap business card. But I believe he's the one that made this. And it's almost like a wood mosaic or something. It's not signed on the back even. Yeah, it's got little turtle, like little things there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've also done wood burning, and then this was beside it, a bongo drum. Even that's pretty artsy. So, yeah, I mean, I think that definitely we've known each other online a little bit, but I think that in the time to come, I'm sure we'll maybe end up doing some collabing and having some good times with each other, maybe in person. And so we have 2 viewers. It said they've been viewing for a while. I don't know if they're still there or not, but yeah, keep an eye out because it might be more fun between us to share in the future. Thanks, Joseph, for doing this with me. Joseph Fedorow, I believe, and it's been interesting. I mean, it's one of those topics that you can say so much on. We could talk all afternoon, but we probably shouldn't. But okay.
Thanks for the invite.
Thanks for joining me. Right on, good to hear. Okay, take care, and I'll have it posted shortly. Not at some point today or tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably. Okay, bye-bye. Sometimes I ramble afterwards, even though I always tire myself up, but I don't know if there's really anything to ramble about. I was curious, I got this notification earlier on, and I was curious what it was. I kind of forgot for a while. Okay, see. But yeah, nothing else really to say. I wish I could have found that cup. Oh well. The other thing I kind of might say is that as much as it seemed like a pretty substantial podcast, and it was, and he enjoyed it, he said too, so and I could tell. And he seemed very familiar, but I don't know if that's because I've seen a couple pictures, and then, I get familiar with the face pretty quickly, and personality, and maybe reminds me of people I've met in my life and whatever. But, and I know I quipped on it at one point when he said it, but it is true in a sense. When he said, for me and that experience I just had with him, when he said something about, I forget how he said it, but something about not just doing it for the sake of doing it, but for as much as you can get out of it or something like that. I noticed when I tried to follow my script, it actually oddly threw me off a little bit. But I think it's important to have it. Like, I wouldn't want to be completely winging it. It's good to have an outline, even if I don't quite follow it. But I'll probably gain more when I watch back. I mean, not that I didn't enjoy or gain anything from just doing that just now, but I'll probably will get more from it when I look back at it, because I'm just kind of in the moment. I'm kind of making sure I cover what I cover, try and follow. He says things, makes me think other things. Things. As the conversation does, right? So it's So whether I would say I could have done that better, I don't know. Maybe I could. Thankfully, there is something great about the kind of person that realizes that conversation is a free-flowing type of thing, and that it is hard to kind of hold a thought in your head, because then something else is going to get said, and that thought might get lost, and then you feel like it's something worth expressing, and this and that. So it's important, and I'm glad that he operated that way, as some do, some don't. But where and then there was also maybe a bit of an audio delay, but where the